Well, welcome back. And we are going to flip back over to some of the Django stuff for this episode and maybe the next couple. We're going to talk about some things that are sort of known, that are not really necessarily particularly special to Django. We're going to look at incorporating JavaScript and using some of the CSS. There's not a whole lot that's specific, but I figured it's a good time for us to do a little catch up, and it's going to be some stuff that we're going to end up utilizing as we build out our application in some future tutorials. And so I want to make sure that we sort of cover those. We've got some good examples. For example, using the Django URLs and some of its values within JavaScript, just to make sure that you're clear on how those things work. Now, one of the things that's a little unique, just in case you're using a Cloud9 environment like I am right now for doing the examples, we talked about early on, we've got static files. We've got CSS, we've got JavaScript, and we have a static folder. Well, if you are on Cloud9, you have to actually set your static URL to static/static. Normally, it's going to look like, if you're on a normal, basically a normal machine, local development, you're going to be good. You're going to do static URL. Otherwise, you're going to have to do static/static. Don't know why, probably a bug, but it's one of those things that needs to be done. So I want to make sure that I bring that up, because what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on CSS. I have included, I've gone ahead, instead of typing out 150 lines of stuff, I've just pulled some things in to do a little bit of styling. Now the first, and you can see this out on GitHub, this will be for, if you look for the tag for day 18, you'll be able to grab the, particularly the app.css file, along with all the other changes that we're going to do, which are not complex, but just to keep things easy. So let's focus on standard footer. So we had a class of footer. And if we do that for both, and if you remember, we had both a base and an internal that was our sort of our templates for pages. Internal is if you're logged in, base is if you're not. And we're going to focus on today on our task list. So initially, we just had this little footer thing. So now we're going to go ahead, and this is called whoops, if I can type it right, standard footer. And we're going to set that for both of our footers. And this is in right here. And it's basically just sort of cleaning some stuff up, giving us some background colors, things like that. So now when we'll do this, we make the change, and it does reload. So we see now we've pushed this stuff down. We've actually cleaned this up and pushed it down a little bit. And we just picked a color. So let's just play around with this, just because the background color is pretty straightforward. So let's change it to something that's a little more fun. Oh, let's just go to like a nice little color picker. We'll take this one just because that's the first one I grabbed, which is, here we go. Take my hex, and in my footer, let's make that the background color. And let's do a color. Since it's dark red, let's make our color equal to white. And now, just to clean that up a little bit, there. Now we see something that looks a little more developer-ish. Now let's continue and let's clean up our list a little bit. And what I tend to do for things like that is typically I have like a card or something like that. So I've got this thing called note card, and there's a couple of things let me go ahead and note them. Let me show an example of them first, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of these. In case you're new to CSS, I'll actually go through a couple of these things. And let me move note card further up, just because that's what we're going to focus on. So right now I'm going to go into task lists. And all I'm going to do is the class before was called task. So let's actually just call it that. So if I change, so now I've got a class of tasks that each task is going to fall under that. And this is a div level style. So, whoops, I don't need to go there. I need to go here. And now if I reload, now we'll see that I've got some interesting things I've added. So I've got little horizontal bars, which I think I had before. If we go to our cards, and let's clean that up a little bit, task list. Yep, we have a little horizontal. So let's get rid of that. So now we have each card, and we see where there's not much that it's doing here. But it does block it out a little bit. And we can see that it's got like a little bit of a shadow. Here, these are all showing our hrefs. So we could come in and we could do, actually, let's just do this. If we do our A's, well, let's do this. Color is, let's just use this color. Actually, we'll come back to that a little bit later because I want to change our hovers. So let's not worry about that. Let's instead go to our CSS. I know I'm bouncing a little bit, but so let's start with our footer. We just went in and gave it a 100% width. We gave it a height. There's no background image we have to worry about. We did the color we saw for our text. They're in our background. And then really this other stuff is just for positioning, images and stuff like that. And then we did push it position fixed to the bottom left, which is where you saw it go from somewhere up here to down here. So now you see that it's there, and we've got a nice little height and all kinds of good stuff like that. So now if we look at these cards, what we can do there is we come in and we have this, the position is not terribly needed, but we do adjust our font size a little bit so you can see, which I think is actually what we used everywhere. So actually we could actually drop that a little bit. This border radius, and that gives us, well, padding, and we'll see both of these. So padding gives us the spaces between it basically. Border radius gives us this little rounded edge there. We've got a margin bottom, margin left, margin right. All of that plus the padding is what gives us the spacing around it. So you can see there's a little bit of margin here. Let's pull this over a little bit like here. So you can see there's some margin there. And let's see, I've got a little background color is white. So let's change that. Let's change that and just shift it a little bit. And then we've got a really small box shadow that we see. And let's actually change that. Yeah, let's see if we'll see. I don't know if you'll be able to see the transition a little better, but let's try that. So if we come in and we reload, so now we can see, there's not much change that you see on this one, unfortunately, the way this works. But normally what you would get would be, you're going to see a little bit of a highlight of the box, and you can see where we sort of darken these up. So now we can see our cards a little bit. Now we can do, fairly quickly, we can change our task list. Where did it go? So now, instead of us doing this as a, we can do each one as a similar div. Actually, let's just do it here. From here, and then we're going to make this using some of our Bootstrap. Let's do this in MD6. And let's see what happens here. So if you do that, so now each one has MD6 is, there's 12 spaces across essentially, or a 12th of the 12 sections. So if I do a 6, that's basically saying half. Now, do I don't have that. Now what I can do Oh, let's see. So I've got the, whoops. Let's do this. So what I can do is I can do this, and now it's going to, because this is Bootstrap and it's automatically doing it. So now I open that up a little bit, and I can see as I shrink, then I'm going to see stuff sort of adjust. It's not a beautiful responsive thing, but it is, moderately useful for that. So we can come in and actually, as we normally would, we're just tweaking our HTML. So you can do anything you normally would do. You can do that fairly straightforward. There's no special things you need to worry about. I can do, let me go ahead and put my break back in there just because, and let me reset. Oh, wait, that was in my task list. Let me go back there and just keep it a normal task. And come back here. We'll leave all of that for now. So we've come in and we've added a few things here and there. Let's go ahead and take a look at our header, which is really just a straight table. So let's clean that up a little bit. This is the internal one. If you see it today, as it sits right now, it's just this nice little ugly thing. So let's do it this way. Is instead of a table, we're going to make a couple of divs. And we're going to make them a class of, actually let's do this. This is going to be a class of menu item. And we don't need that. Let's clean these, whoops. Let's clean these up a little. And get this done real quick. And what we will do is we'll just look at it with these as divs first. And then we're going to actually, because I'm assuming I do not have a menu item anywhere here. Okay, good. So I don't. And then let's actually start with the menu item. Now we'll just copy standard footer. Let's sort of build one out here real quick. So menu item, let's cut the height down. Let's say it's 25. Width, we don't need. There's no background image. Let's make the color, let's make it that darker color. So we'll make it, let's say DDD. The background color, let's keep that dark red. So it'll give us sort of that on both sides. Let's not worry about our background stuff. Position is fixed. And now, let's try this. Oh, that's going to be per menu item. We don't want to do that. So let's just play around with this a little bit here. And if we come in, we've got our guys set up. Let's take a look at what our menu looks like now. So this is going to change dramatically. And you can see they're all stacked up right now. So let's go in and we're going to change these as well. So now this is going to be an on click. And then he's going to do, well, let's come back to that. I don't want to do the on click yet. Let's save that for now because we're going to clean these up a little bit. So let's see, div. Oh, div. And then let's go back to our app. Let's not worry about our position fixed. Height, background color, let's not worry about our top. So now if we do that, So now, but they're not, that they're spreading all the way out. So what we want to do here is we're going to set this up as a row. There's a few things you may be noticing as we're going through this, and we will clean these up in the next episode. So now it's going to be a row, and this is a bootstrap thing. So if we make that a row and that a row, so now all of these guys are within a row, and then let's make each of these, we're going to make them an MD2. So we're going to change our width a little bit. And so if we do that, so now we've got this built out. Now there's still some issues we've got with it, but we've relatively quickly gone in and made a few changes, which is key. That's why we do style sheets, is that we can fairly quickly move around. Now, not all of this is going to be there. Oops, that's my long end. So now if I go to About, if I do Create a Task, we can see that I've gotten all of these things put together fairly quickly. If I log out, then I do have the footer. I did adjust that, but that's not even in. We'll take a look at that in a little bit. And anything here like this is, I guess I use the internal for About and Home, but I got to log in for that. And I can get back to my home page. So this time we just really started with the style sheets. Next time around, I want to jump in and we're going to play around with our JavaScript for a bit. And we're going to actually clean this thing up and do some basics so that we can make our menus look a little bit better. That's it for today. So go out there and have yourself a great one, and we will talk to you next time.